what compelled me to write it was seeing so many people over the years caught up in spiritual bypassing. And I'd written a few essays about it, worked on it in private sessions and groups with people, but I'd never had considered putting it into a book until a friend suggested that over a year ago. Why don't you do a book about this very topic? Because one has not been yet written. But it was largely motivated by those who were especially caught up in it. And again, spiritual bypassing means using spiritual practices and or beliefs to avoid dealing with painful situations in our lives, emotional challenges, developmental tasks, and rationalizing that avoidance with spiritual language. So I call it, in shorthand, dissociation and holy drag. And it can be very subtle. It can range from claiming that we're all creating our reality, and if we're sick, that's because we've drawn it to us. We use magical thinking, to the most sophisticated types of meditative practice where one can dissociate from certain states and think that one is simply observing them dispassionately, when in fact we're so removed, we're cut off. We've become dry. Our spirituality's become desiccated. So it basically means avoidance in spiritual robes, spiritualized avoidance. And it's very prevalent.
It's very common.
And when I started to write it, I realized I had to write about misuse of compassion, the demonizing of anger, confrontation phobia, shame, premature transcendence, getting really negative about our negativity. It just went on and on. It was like opening a can of worms, but I'm glad I opened it.
And it's really, it's not something for people to be ashamed of. It's what we all do. We all do this to a certain degree as we go along the spiritual path, and with our own evolving, it's just there. So it's more, here's how it works, here's what it is, here's an invitation to take a look at how to stop avoiding those things and go into them.
My book exposes it. It kind of reveals the anatomy of spiritual bypassing, the many faces of spiritual bypassing. It also is an invitation to outgrow it. Not to make it wrong, but to meet the place in us that is prone to that, which is the exact same place that wants to be distracted from any sort of suffering. And to meet it and to truly do what's needed to outgrow it. Because without that, we're not really engaged in spiritual practice. We are doing something that is a surrogate of it. And that keeps us cut off from what we really could have if we were to engage in spiritual practice fully. No, if one is, it's just in the same way that you could spend days with a deeply ingrained fundamentalist with the most cogent arguments possible, the most compassionate approach. At the end of that time, they may even say, what you say makes sense, but I still believe what I believe. If someone's really committed to being in a stuck place, you're not going to pull them out of it.
I think this is more for people that are realizing that despite all the spiritual practices they're doing, they still aren't really changing things in their lives. There's something that's not quite all fitting together, and what is it?
People who realize they've reached enough maturity to get that there are some things that spiritual practice cannot touch. The psychological work, psychotherapeutic work can touch, especially in conjunction with spiritual practice. So what we're pointing to here is a truly psycho-spiritual approach to healing and awakening, which is our work in essence, psycho-spiritual work, integrative work.